Okay, now we can get into the show. And of course, it's a clinical healthcare demo because I love clinical healthcare stuff. I told you before. Just one topology slide so you understand what I'm doing in this demo. We have Cloud Control Center already, of course, pre-deployed. It's my demo environment. I use it for a lot of customer demos and proof of concepts and stuff. We have a set of virtual edges we have a redundant clustering mechanism for our virtual edges. So I have that set up. And I have a clinic with 2 switches, a 9300 and a 3850. And then I have a hospital somewhere else with a 9300. The interesting thing about the hospital is that the 9K over there is hosting the app versus it running in a hypervisor, right? So I'm just trying to show you that we have both models in this implementation and they can live together. So you can have 100 of these independently running virtual edges if you want in the all switches. I don't recommend that. It's not likely because it's a one-to-many architecture usually. Or you can have it as a hypervisor. And then I have a bunch of assets in here, clinical assets, right? So in this demo, really what I'm going to show you is, number one, I'm just going to give you a little view of the UI and identity graph and how to build policies and policy groups and apply that. But what I want to show you is how I can reclassify an asset that joined the network that was considered unauthorized initially. It was somebody plugged in their laptop and it was unauthorized, but I need to reclassify. I need to build a classification criteria group so that I can put that into a group that I can apply policy to, and then we'll do it in real time. Sound good? All make sense? Yep. All right, cool. Now, I'm gonna grab a chair because I think I'm gonna steal your chair, Piot. So I'm actually gonna log into one of my assets. This is the unauthorized computer that joined the network. You can see right now I'm using this app called VMPing. It's just a way for me to see at scale all the different things I have access to. It's just testing connectivity to these different assets on the clinical network locally at the site where this device is connected, as well as globally where the hospital exists, right? So on the left side is my clinical assets locally, and on the right side is my global assets. And I have things like X-ray machines and scanners and mammography machines. I have badge readers and security cameras and other laptops, servers. I have an EHR server, electronic health record server. You know what those are, right? Like an Epic server at the global site, probably like in a data center at the hospital. And you can see I'm trying to reach that EHR server on different ports and protocols. And so we're going to build some differentiated policies to basically lock down this device so that it only has the least privileged access requirements. Okay, so I'm going to log into my Cloud Control Center. It looks like I'm already logged in here. Yeah, I'm already logged in. And what I'm going to do here, I have this environment being used for many different things, for OT demos and whatnot. So I actually have it filtered based on a specific site. So I have this clinic site where all those assets I showed you exist. And so I filtered it. You can see some nice data about high-level information about what assets are on the network. And I can click on anything here and auto-filters all the assets I have here. So what you see here is a device listing, all the assets that I've discovered on the network dynamically. And we're going to be focused on this one right here, which is that laptop I'm connected to right now that I need to put into a new group. It's currently unclassified, right? So let's take a look at its identity graph output so you can get a general understanding of what identity graph looks like for our customers. So you can see here, of course, we have some device information. It's IP, it's MAC. That's probably the only time you're ever going to be ever see me talking about IPs and MACs because, again, we're an identity-based approach, right? Go ahead.
No, it's abstracted.
Oh, that's fine.
Yep.
And then a unique device identifier that we apply to this for our identity graph. Of course, we know where this device is located. It's what virtual edge it's on and what virtual edge node. A virtual edge node, by the way, I should have mentioned that terminology is just a switch that's onboarded under the virtual edge. We call it a virtual edge node, okay, because it's a node of it. And then some policy details. Right now, this device has fallen into an unauthorized computer's policy group. And I'll show you what that looks like. It's very basic. We'll come back to it in a moment. And we'll talk about policy sets and all this other stuff in a moment. But further down, where customers spend most of their time is reviewing the identity graph data, the attributes, the contextual information about this asset. So here we have something called core effective attributes, which customers can specify basically what sets of data from which connectors do they consider the most valid. and consider the most true, and they have one place to view that across all their assets. But if we go down a little bit, you can see here under trust attributes, we know that this device is in several different connectors. Not only do we natively discover it, we also know that it's in Active Directory. We know that it's in CrowdStrike and ServiceNow. And we're then going to pull those different third-party connectors to get identity graph data or enrich the data about it. Now, this is not just for visibility. You can build policies that say, hey, is this device known in Active Directory? Is it known in CrowdStrike? Is it running a CrowdStrike EDR? If it's not, okay, kick it out and give it some other policy group, put it into a policy group with more restrictions, for example, right? How you define that is up to the customer. Our logic, which you'll see in a moment, is super granular. There's hundreds of things to match on to build what matters to your business, to define what's unauthorized, what's authorized, what's a PC, in this case, it's a radiology desktop, right? Or a laptop. So if I scroll down, here's some Elisity native data that we've collected. And you can manually configure stuff. Let's say, for example, you want to manually configure a label on this asset, which is not uncommon. Customers want to differentiate assets manually sometimes, and they can upload all that via a spreadsheet, and you can add labels. Of course, we can see all the data we know about this asset in Active Directory because it's a part of the AD service. We have learned from ServiceNow that it's a radiology device. And right here, you can see there's an asset tag there, and you can see some more information about it. And it's running CrowdStrike. So anything about CrowdStrike we can pull in here. What I love about my CrowdStrike integration, I say my CrowdStrike integration like it's mine, but I PM'd it, and so I feel like it's mine, is that we could pull the ZTNA, or the trust scores that these platforms are figuring out with their intelligence, whether it's Armis or Clarity. They all build their own score based on the security of these platforms, what patch versions they're running, all that stuff, right? So you can pull that into our solution, and then build policy based off that. Say, for example, if a device with a CrowdStrike score of less than 57 joins the network, I don't want it on my network, or I want it in some small restricted environment, so you can remediate first before you allow it to access anything else. It identifies that and puts that, you can use that as your match criteria. Make sense so far? Fantastic. Okay, we have some other things in here I'm not going to go into for sake of time, but there's, of course, analytics, which I'll show you at the end of this demo. But what's more important is to show you how you build these policy groups and classify criteria. So let's go back to devices real quick. And I have all my other devices that you saw on that VM ping output already classified into certain groups, as I showed you also in the topology. So what I want to do, though, is I need to get this guy into a new group that identifies it, or any other device that's similar and that has the same meets the same match criteria, satisfies the same match criteria, I should say, and those get dynamically populated into the policy group as well, right? So let's go build a policy group together. We'll come back to that pretty graph. I know you're excited about that. I know I am. But see, we have these things called local policy groups, and we have global policy groups. A local policy group means that it's only locally significant to that site. Because we have customers that need differentiated policies per site, differentiated ways to group the same types of assets per site. But then we also have the same customers need to have like global printers and have access to the EHR system, which is in the global policy group for the policy application. So in this case, I have a physical security group, an imaging device, an unauthorized computer group, and a data service. What I'm going to do is just build one right now together with you to classify that asset, okay? So we're going to do this. I'm going to call this clinic I should just look at my own computer. Authorized radiology, okay? And Dana stuff. It doesn't matter what we put there. I also need to add this to a specific policy set, and I'll talk about policy sets in a moment. That was that cool grid that you just saw. I need to add this group I'm creating into that set so I can apply policy. It shows up on that grid. You can have as many of these sets as you want, and we'll show you in a moment. So because this is a global policy, a policy group, I should say, it already auto-defines the site ID and that it's going to be specific to that or locally significant, right? So what I want to do, though, and I have to bring up my little guide here because I haven't done this for a little bit from what I want to match on. But I'm going to say if the ServiceNow asset tag matches radiology, and it's at this site, great. You can see, actually, before I do that, let me skip out of this. Look at this. This matched assets, it was 11 initially. And as I add more match criteria, that means there's only 11 devices at this site. But as I add more match criteria, it's going to pare it down. What we're doing here is that instilling confidence thing. You know exactly what's going to be grouped into this asset policy group as you build it. Make sense? You're not left in the dark and then I click go and it processes it and like, oh, what got matched? So we're going to tell you immediately, right? So there's the guy I want to match. So let's go back to that. So ServiceNow asset tag, and I said radiology, right? It's a radiology asset. I also want to add an additional end rule that it has to be known in ServiceNow as a computer. Okay, so under ServiceNow, type computer. I need to know that this is a computer, right? You can see it's still matching, And you can add as many things as you want. But I'm going to add one more because it's cool, and that's that it's known in CrowdStrike. This is a good use case. Is there an EDR installed, and did CrowdStrike know about it? If not, it shouldn't be on my network. I don't want it on my network. It's not secure. So let's add that as well, and that's basically a trust attribute. We're going to say trust attribute equals known in CrowdStrike.
While you're showing this, for instance, this is a very typical use case where, for instance, if the CrowdStrike agent is disabled, turned off, we at the network layer, we can actually quarantine it, right?
Exactly.
So if there's some malware which disables or tries to disable EDR, there's nothing that can be really done at the endpoint. We can react at the network layer. So this is where we are part of this ecosystem, right?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a really good point. I can add as many of these AND rules or rules and Boolean lists of these rule sets to be super granular on how you match your assets, or you can even do broad stroke policy groups if that's what you want. Like all security cameras across my entire org, that's an easy one. Maybe one or two match statements, and then everything will be grouped that way. But once we're done, we're going to hit create here. And you can see it's processing. And that asset that was in the unauthorized computer group is going to move to the authorized radiology computer group. There, see? One asset is in there. Let's click it and see what's in there. We have that device. Now, we have this cool feature called locking and unlocking. If you're concerned about the auto reclassification or the change of identity and stuff, and how that could affect identity graph and the classification of your assets and the policies that are applied, you can lock assets so they can never get moved out of these groups. And you can't delete the groups as well once there's locked assets in there. This is a use case that our operational technology customers look for. They love the dynamic discovery, but they wanted to make sure once it was discovered and once they built their match criteria, it would never leave that because they're afraid of anything getting reclassified. So you can lock and unlock, right? So let's just lock this asset real quick. And it's never going to be moved out of this policy group. Okay, now if I go back to my guy over here, which kicked me out, you can see now I have full access. Why? Because it got reclassified into a group that has no policy set up right now. So it's open access. The routers are routing, the switches are switching. That's what it's doing, right? So it can do its thing. We can also apply a default policy and whatnot, so that doesn't happen. But in this demo, I'm not doing that here. But you can see, I want to show you that the change happened. That means the network access changed as well. We pushed that to the network. Go back over here. And now we can play with our clinical healthcare policy set. I got to do this in 12 minutes, which I can do. I just want to point something out here. On the X and Y axis of the policy set, which is assigned to a site or assigned to a switch or assigned to a virtual agent. It's up to you how granular you want this set of policy groups to be applied to your environment. On the X and Y axis, you have the policy groups that are created, all the ones that I told the system to put into this policy set. And this is the one we just created. And that's why it's open, right? There's no policy there. Any empty cell means that there's currently no policy in place. Any cell with red means that there's a deny all policy. Anything with green is a permit all policy. Anything with blue is a custom layer 4 policy with your own set of rules in there. All you have to do.
Hey, Dana.
Yes.
Pardon me for interrupting.
Don't be. That's fine.
So speaking of policies, in my experience, this is the part where customers stop.
Yeah.
They never get. This is when you spend the years trying to get this thing deployed. Do you have pre-canned policies based on industry type? Do you work with people to come up with standard policies? How have you been doing that?
Yeah, so we have of course a permit all and deny all policy by default in there. It's very straightforward.
And I need your tool for that.
Yeah, right. I know. Well, to distribute those dynamically, you might, right? But in the platform today, there's no specific like custom policies that we've predefined. However, for a lot of our customers, we've collected these and we can push them from the moment that your product is deployed for the customer to have all these generic policies for them. So in a way, yes, because we have them in our platform, our CX team has them ready like that. And so based on their experience, yes, we do have them available. And the moment we deliver the product to the customer, it's already been pushed into their platform and they can leverage them. Now, there's some intelligence stuff that Piotr can talk about here.
I mean, really quick, I know you have 10 minutes.
That's okay, that's enough time.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for...
No, it's perfect. I mean, Dennis, actually, this is something that has been underlined by Forrester when they were doing a review of our platform. They said, guys, where are the workflows? Like, where are the policy, the segments recommendations within the platform? And frankly speaking, they do not exist in the platform today. It's actually a feature that we are working on right now. Our customers will see in next quarter or two exactly that. So basically, the segment recommendations based on the vertical. Today, it's done in a high-touch way through our CX team, who has a huge experience knowing that healthcare systems should start with this sets of segments. OT manufacturing companies should start with different set of segments. Yeah. So today it's a high touch, but we are going to embed it in the product really quickly.
Yeah.
And I think this is where you can later on show the analytics.
Yep, exactly. So that's exactly. So to instill confidence again in our customers, we have the learning mode mixed with a policy simulation mode. So let's look at the learning mode. Initially, if I do show traffic flow, and I don't have much traffic in this environment because I just built it, so I'm going to move to a different one. It's the same thing, just a different policy set. But you can see here that we have now overlaid on top of the policies, we have the traffic flow view. So I can click, for example, a cell that has a mix of denied and permit policies and see what's been potentially permitted or denied, whether that was during an active enforcement of that policy or was during a simulation mode of that policy. And so you can go through and see this. You can quickly edit the policy from here and refine your policy and add more and remove rules, et cetera, right? Make it very easy to do that with our platform.
And sorry, then really quickly.
Don't be sorry.
The fields that are empty here, it basically means that there's no traffic. If you change this view to like last month and you see no traffic between mobile, tablet, and EHR segment, it probably means that you are safe to deny this.
Yeah.
This is actually, in the life cycle of the policy enforcement, really the first thing that our customers are doing. They're just monitoring the traffic for a couple of weeks. If there's nothing there, you can guess that tablet shouldn't talk to a server out there, right?
Yeah.
This is the first set of policies that our customers are bringing. And it's already securing the network, very quickly, starting basically week 2.
And when you turn on that deny, you can see the log or get immediate notifications that something's happening that you might want to investigate or be sure that
traffic dropped. Yes.
Yeah, because we may go in here and say, okay, we want to deny on this traffic because nothing's happened here, and then we find out the quarterly thing runs that gets denied that actually needs to run.
Absolutely.
Right. We have a SIEM integration, like for instance with Splunk, where actually you can export, these events.
Yeah. Yep. We definitely.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
See, we're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah. Splunk
Networking
and
ESP.
So what you're left with when you've built your policy groups and you've built this beautiful grid is such a universal view of all of the assets on your network and your posture, right? Your segmentation posture. You can come here and see, the goal is to kind of get all these cells filled out as much as possible. Once you have a fully built out policy set, then you know that you're doing something. You're doing some level of segmentation within your network. And we are building in a scoring system, and all that stuff is coming in a new version of code here soon that I've been working on, which will be really nice to see. But let's build some policies together. Let's build some simulated policies and some enforced policies. I got 6 minutes. We're going to do this quickly, right? So back to this guy. You can see all full access right now. I think really, it should be, let's build something really simple. Let's multi-select this. I know that my authorized computer shouldn't really be talking to certain things on the network, right? So I'm going to highlight this entire row, but then unselect certain things. I'm going to remove these. I'm not going to build any policies for these just yet. Well, this guy doesn't need to talk to the data service. He doesn't need to talk to the physical security. He doesn't need to talk to the global IoMT imaging. Actually, he doesn't need to talk to anything else in here. So I'm just going to create a quick deny all policy, and you're going to see how that changes. Global. Let's make something up here. So I'm going to have to do this quick because it happens real quick. So I'm going to hit create. You can tell, it tells you, do you want to set this as a simulation or do you want to activate it? Right? We're going to activate it because I want to show you this in real time. So we're going to do that. I'm going to come over here and give it a second. These should all go orange, then yellow. Or sorry, yellow, then red. So now I've blocked access to a good amount of assets on my network. I've kept some open because this radiology user needs to access the X-ray and the CT scanners and stuff. But maybe that CT scanner, I'm telling you, this is really common. These like GE CT scanners, they run like Windows XP in the back end, and they're only can be managed by GE themselves. And so you know there's an exploit that could potentially be leveraged. Let's block a specific port on the network to that asset that we can't really touch. Let's block port 22 to create a more differentiated policy there. So that's to the imaging devices here. So I'm going to say block some SSH. Or that was it. Port 22 was it? What was it? 22? I think I said 22, right? So we're going to create this. Put whatever you want in there. So it's simple as just putting in a rule that you want, right? What's happening here? There it is. So let's just say 22 there. I want to block it. But I want to allow everything else out on that. So I'm going to hit create, set it as active. Go back here. You should see this guy should go red, but everything else should stay. There you go. As quick as that, right? So at a high level, that's what you're doing. You're building these differentiated policies simply, and it just, it's on the network like that. Very, very quickly.
And just really quick,
sure.
Because it might even look scary that it is so easy to deploy these policies. Dana is showing you the fast path. Everything here is RBAC'd. You can have different users, ones that are creating policies on in simulation mode, 4 eyes, different set of users who can activate, So all of that is in the platform. We are showing you the fast path, but, this is production grade. This is not as easy,
And schedulable for change windows. You can say deploy this at this time in the future.
Not yet. The product management feature request.
Yeah, that's me, right? It's my job, I guess. We have we have time-based policies coming very soon. The policies can be applied at a certain time and removed at another time. That's actually in the next.
Yeah, that's another common one
that's already coming.
For like updates between dev and production that happen monthly or whatever.
Yeah, that's already coming. Probably by the time you get a hands on this product, it'll be there. This is pretty much the next release. One thing I want to talk about real quick is that are these policy sets. And it's very valuable to our customers because you can pre-build entire sets of policies, apply them just for simulation, and then have another one just for enforcement, or you can use them, you can duplicate them and make this really simple to deploy at many sites. But I love this one use case that one of our customers uses policy sets for, and it's for incident response. We can have an active policy set where the world is fine, I'm not compromised, everything is good. You can have another one sitting and waiting for something to happen to trigger it, to apply a whole new set of policies to that site. And that's called like an incident response policy set. So you can see this one is a lot more locked down. Maybe if a remote site gets compromised with ransomware and you do not want it to leave that site, and you can use a playbook that then calls our platform via API to apply this policy set, it can be done like that. So you can work your CrowdStrike integration into your playbook, and then we can execute based on that data as well.
So administrators can apply security policies with no fear.
Yeah.
All right.
I want what you're drinking.
The last part of this, I got it in. We got 1 minute left for me to talk about analytics. We don't want to leave you flying blind here. We talked about simulation mode. We talked about all the data that you can see in the traffic matrix and whatnot. But we also have a module and a way to view this data from an identity perspective. I mean, of course, I can give you all the flow data, right? Here it is, right? Everybody's got a flow collector, and we can see flow data, and we can do that. That's there for fun, or for whatever you want to use it for. What's really valuable to our customers is for them to see the relationships between their groups and the assets within these groups using something like this, like a Sankey chart. I'm sure you've heard of a Sankey chart. And so you can see here in this case, the source and destination groups. And we can go deeper and see the assets within these groups. Let's just pick one of these groups, like, I don't know, this unassigned group right here. This unassigned group of assets is talking to all these other policy groups on all these ports and protocols. But if I want to know what's the culprit for a specific high, like a lot of flows or a lot of data, I can click Show Assets, and it breaks it apart on the top 20 talkers or whatever you want to say, right? And it builds this out. You can go deeper and see exactly which protocols, and I'm done. Here we go. So 0 now.
In terms of the healthcare segment, I guess it's a strong correlation that it's experienced a great deal of cybersecurity breakdowns, and this is helping shorten your sales cycle into that segment. Like, you know, they're ready to floss. You know, they.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good way to put it. Right. Again, coming it back to time to mitigation is all that they care about at this point. How quickly can we mitigate all these known threats that are happening right now? That's the goal today for most organizations.
Would you say your value proposition is probably, like healthcare, for example, your value proposition is probably strongest when you have a diversity of endpoint types? Like obviously healthcare, you've got glucose monitors, you've got all kinds of stuff.
Did you see my glucose monitor in there?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you saw it.
But like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whereas some other kind of company, some other kind of industry might be more vanilla, your value proposition might not be as strong there. But is that a fair statement to say that the more variety of endpoint, right?
The sales part of Dana says, no, I think this is valuable, whether it's a homogeneous environment of assets or it's a very diverse set of assets. I would say that, of course, if you have 1 or 2 types of assets throughout your entire environment, you could probably figure out, and the size of your environment, you could probably figure out how to do this all manually with some other platform. But you still lose out on the dynamic nature of it, the distribution model of it, the cloud delivered model of it, the simplicity of it. Just because you have 2 types of assets in your network doesn't change the complexity of like deploying a NAC or something.
Right. And if you have sheer scale.
Exactly.
Sheer scale is the other.
Exactly.
That makes sense.